Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gimme Rent podcast. Today, it's me, Brandon. I'm joined by my guest, Dan McNicholas.
How we doing?
So, big news has dropped about a week ago. I think it's perfect time for us to cover this, but it's been 20 years since Ben 10. Ben 10 is now getting a comic again, this time not with DC Comics, actually with, I believe it was Dynamite Entertainment, which is paired up with the Man of Action, who did Ben 10 and various projects. What are you thinking on these designs?
I love when things go, like how do we put it? We grow up with Ben 10, and obviously there are some of those edgier designs in the base cartoon here, right? But it's meant for kids, and now with this new art direction, I think there is an understanding of the more mature and older audience that really grew up on this. So it's really good to see an edgier take to some of these alien designs. Like gray matter, I think looks wildly different. You see the guy's brain, and that's just like what makes up his head, for an example, and that's pretty sick. You know what? We're getting past sort of that more cartoony side of things, where it's great to see these guys like look intimidating as aliens, like forearms, especially like you know red guy forearms. You kind of paint yourself into a corner with that, with some of the design with that, but you know what? Looking at him, he's menacing. He
Yeah,
looks mean, and that's such a good thing right now.
it does remind me. I don't know if you know about Absolute Batman or the Absolute Superman comics that have been coming out, but the Absolute Batman design and Absolute Killer Croc, like all of his villains, like the Rogue Gallery, is menacing, and people loved it. When it was first announced, I was like, I'm not sure like how this is going to do. It looks way too edgy, maybe even for me. Loved it. Loved the designs. Love the story. And now looking at Ben 10, look at Cannonbolt, for example. Cannonbolt looks like he'd be the Hat Man out of the Conjuring series, looking at him right now. Um, I just really want to know where the Omnitrix is going to go on some of these guys because not all of them are clothed. When we had the original Ben 10 show, they would all get the black and white shirt. The Omnitrix would show up, especially, on Gray Matter, Forearms, and Chromastone were known for it. Chromastone's shirtless completely on this cover. Wildvine looks like just a massive blossoming flower. Upgrade is very similar, just bulky. But you go into Stinkfly, is on the cover. He looks like an actual fly now with a fly wing, the head. You get to see Heat Blast take on a different form, and he kind of looks like Dormammu a tiny bit, which is very funny to me. I just don't know who the other alien is. If that's Water Hazard or, like you said before we even got on the call, if it's NRG, like I don't even know who that could be. Or it's another new alien, like how they did Feedback in Omniverse.
Yeah, absolutely. And it leaves a lot to the imagining, which I really love about this. Looking at Stingfly, he's obviously not as prominent as you could see the upper half of Diamond Head. You could take a look and really get a good idea of the design for Heat Blast and Cannonbolt in here. But with how far back Stingfly is in the cover, it's I absolutely want to see what he ends up looking like, close up, and what he's capable of here, right?
Yeah.
The like obviously the wings in this is great. I love seeing that, more biological touch to the art style. I think that's awesome, and you lose that a lot with cartoons, because the point of it is to be simple, understandable, which is great. But having this and standalone art like this, it allows these artists to take a new approach and a more detailed approach to these designs, which again, like I've been saying, is fantastic to see.
No, definitely. And going away from the aliens, I definitely just want to talk about the main three that we see in the leaked, or not leaked, but released panels. But you definitely see a very different take on Grandpa. Grandpa Max does not look like your traditional Grandpa Max in any of the shows. Beard, glasses, slightly skinnier, like more. The word I guess what I would use is what, husky. I think that makes the most sense.
The best way I could put it is he looks like your veteran grandpa. You know what I mean? He has that that edge to him. He looks like he carries himself a lot differently here. So I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. With looking at Ben, Ben 10, the original, right? I think it's a great subversion of expectations, where it's like, okay, Grandpa Max, he's this fat jolly guy. He looks like Santa Claus, no beard and retired, but getting to see him go into action and do that kind of plumber stuff, as we get to see, is really great, and it's a great flip on that. But here, you're coming into it, and you get to see like, this guy might have that jolly, demeanor, and that's where they might go into that, subversion of expectation here, right? But it's great to see. I think it brings a lot more realism into, what he's capable of. Like another thing too is, you get this still shot of his like leg, right, and what he's wearing his shoes, and it's a really small detail for that kind of stuff. But high laced, boots like that, ask anybody who goes out a lot into nature, anybody who's done typical types of service, like that's pretty standard for what you see in terms of that kind of footwear. So it gives me like I said, tiny detail that I think can speak a lot to this guy knows what he's doing. This guy looks like he's prepped for stuff that may or may not happen going forward, just based off his footwear. You know what I mean? And it's subtle stuff like that I can't wait to see more of. Moving forward, right? Like obviously, in that same panel that's released, you have Gwen there reading. That's what she does. She reads
Yep.
reads
Well, I was
books. But
thinking.
at the end of the day, it's like, what's she reading? You know what I'm saying? Is she getting early magic shit? Early on here. What are we doing here, right?
Yeah, this is one of those where I honestly think they might change the story, not significantly, but they might tweak some things a little bit early and change not the origin. We know how he's going to get the watch regardless, but it's definitely the same thing. Campfire, Omnitrix is going to land. It just depends on where they go from here. And like you said, it's essentially the same designs. Gwen's not wearing the shirt, the long sleeve shirt with the cat on it, but Grandpa Max, Ben have the same exact fit as they did in 2006, which I do like. But I really think going into this, they're not going to give us the same story over and over again, because then they're going to be like, we're going to expect everything just in different designs. And they're not going to make money off of that. So I wonder if this is something where Vilgax has different plans. Maybe it's the Forever Knights. Maybe it's even Dr. Animo having like arcs. They might drag storylines out more than like we got a couple episode arcs. Even Zombozo, that's a design I really want to see get a lot more on the horror side. I want him to not be like Pennywise, because I think it's gonna be a little too much of not copyright, but just copying in general. I wouldn't want him to look like, oh, we're getting Pennywise and Ben 10. Like, no, it's got to be his own design, and very very similar characters, especially with how he was portrayed in that original show. And I think we might even get some original villains out of this. And Kevin 11 is also another bit. Like Ben 10 had a lot of great villains throughout the original first show before, and Alien Force was great too, and so was Ultimate Alien. Alien Force was probably written the best out of the three.
Oh yeah.
But Ben 10's original show had some phenomenal voice acting. And Zaskare, the original Ghost Freak villain that we end up getting, had some of the craziest voices. And the one thing I did like about his design is how original it was for a ghost-like entity alien. I really want to see him be a bigger role than just those couple episode arcs that we got in the original show, and he comes back one time. So I would like to see him get dragged out a little bit more as a bigger role.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We did mention a little bit before we got on here and started recording the difference in design between Omniverse and base Zaskare here. I think the Scythe is a great add-on to him. The cloak, not so much. You take a look at his original. It's a little too much, right? The original design, I want to see that be expanded rather than redesigned, if that makes sense, right? Because the redesign in Omniverse, it could effectively be a different character. Like in the most basic example is his face is right side up, right? You look at the original design, it's that upside down face, and it's it's subtle. It's not the biggest thing on his design there, but it's effective. It's effective, and it does really go to show what you can expect from a character like this. And you mentioned Vilgax and Kevin here. I am so excited to see what their redesigns look like. Especially Kevin in the altered alien state, right? With what we can extrapolate from the redesigns that we could see and what's been released. I think it's there's so much opportunity there to see what he's going to end up looking like. You know, some of the Kevin 11 designs that I think were really good wasn't necessarily. I just looked up Kevin online with nothing else. That's embarrassing. Kevin 11, what a name! But he had that original design that we see him in base Ben 10, and I believe it was with one of the time skip episodes where they're in that separate timeline. He has his son that ends up going through that same process. What a
Ben
design there!
10K, are you talking about when they do Ben 10,000 and then Kevin
Yes,
Levin's son? No, I agree. And the one thing, like you pointed out earlier, with all these designs, like the practical detail, such as Stinkfly's wing, him being just such a combination of different aliens, I could see them going the route like they did Absolute Joker and making him such a monster, or Absolute, Killer Croc. Now that they're kind of putting their own horrific spin on it, they have all these different, materialistic designs they can deal with, whether it's Stinkfly's wing, the antenna of Ripjaw's, who we haven't even seen his design yet. And I think they could make him such a horrifying villain where it makes you look as an adult 20 years later, like, wow, they really cooked for this. And I just hope they do him justice and they don't make him look sloppy. That's the one thing I want. I want it to look very artistic. I want it to look so unique where I really do. I appreciate the art already as it is, looking at this cover and the alternate covers too.
yeah. And another thing too is one of the sort of my benchmark for what has like really really good art in humanoid but like not human designs comes from Berserk, and it's been a long term manga series, and it deals with a lot of it's extremely edgy, very like R-rated material, but something that I think comes from how not frequent that is those issues come out is that the art is always top tier, right? And I'd love to see with this, do I want more Ben 10 content constantly? Yes, absolutely. I really want to see the direction of this more focused on taking its time and really, nailing the art style here and making sure that everything looks good, everything, has that, weight to it in terms of what these aliens are, what they're capable of, getting to see sort of that morphology with them, and that's the other thing too, where, Ben 10 was a week by week show, right? You were always getting new episodes, and that's a tough schedule to keep up with, and you see that a lot in other animated series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, back to dip into, sort of the Japanese side of it with anime. Like, One Piece has horrible pacing because it's trying to keep up with, base material that they don't have yet because it's still coming out and it's still evolving. With this, with so much base material that's out there, you know what? I think they have all of the building blocks available to make something really, really special with this, and I cannot wait to see more.
No, 100%. I totally agree with you. They have so much to work with as it is. And now the Man of Action who worked on the show, being a big part of it, they own, I believe they own or they're a part of Dynamite. So just seeing what they're going to do. And I know it's going to be different. There's going to be villains that maybe are so minuscule or we don't even see. Or they're going to elaborate maybe more with Plummer stuff because in the original Ben 10, they don't as much as they did in Alien Force. It's one of those things where we're going to have to see what route they go because they're not going to give us the same thing over and over again. It just does not make sense. It's like, oh, you're just giving us the comic we've already gotten with DC years ago. You've already got the shows. Something's going to change. It's not going to just be a redesign for every alien, even the characters, just to put it on written format. I don't think it will outsell, especially Absolute Batman or any of these comics. Like, just no way. But I definitely can see them going a specific route with how they handle this property, making it really break records. And I think it was Captain Planet, but there's other Cartoon Network shows that are trying to become comics. I could see Generator X coming back. It was originally an Image Comics, but I could see maybe a crossover in comics with this universe, and a redesign for Generator X to fit this universe would look sick. Even the Secret Saturdays. I don't know if you watched that, but Ben has crossovered with both of them. Whether it was in, I think it was Ultimate Alien or Alien Force was with the Generator Rex, and then the Secret Saturdays was the newer show, which I didn't really watch Omniverse way too much, but I could definitely see them now dipping into those other specific projects that are very Ben 10 esque. Would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Something that I did specifically in terms to make sure I was, up on my Ben 10 knowledge, because, I'm not glued on the Cartoon Network like I used to be, right? But
Yeah.
there's a YouTuber out there that I cannot recommend enough, named Jordan Fringe, who did a whole retrospective on the series. It's a great way to go back and,
Mhm.
relive some of this content. And he dipped into these crossover episodes with Generator Rex and the Secret Saturdays, bangers, right? The first thing, one of the first images you could look up on Google, Secret Saturdays, you get that Omniverse crossover still shot there, right?
Mhm.
Other than that, though, my exposure to Generator Rex and the Secret Saturdays was a lot more limited, right? I think, I believe it was that, 10-10-10 weekend,
Mhm.
where they introduced Omniverse, where, what a day for me to go out, you know what I mean? Because as soon as I saw the redesign in Omniverse, it was like, okay, this is obviously this is a reboot. I'm not as into it as, it doesn't evolve, at least to where my perception of the show was at the time, from what we had already established in, Ultimate Alien. But, going back and especially watching those videos online, it does continue that story, and it's something that I completely missed out on in terms of Omniverse and getting to see how that universe expanded.
Yeah. I didn't watch Omniverse too much. I mean, I've touched upon it, but I think a lot of things not becoming canon anymore really was just weird. Not saying the original three shows connected were so perfect. Loved feedback. It's just so weird that they want to add this character and he's just never mentioned. But yet the other stuff is canon, but it's not at the same time. It's weird. I didn't like a lot of the redesigns. I liked a lot of the new aliens. Like, don't get me wrong. I really liked the Vampire. A couple of the other characters I really did like. I really was not a fan of like a blossomed swamp fire. I did not like Zascare's looking like the Grim Reaper. I just think the beauty of Ben 10 as a property is how original all these aliens looked. Like, we didn't really see anything in other alien media that was so similar. Like, maybe they took some inspiration from some stuff and I just do not remember. But you don't see anything that's like, oh, we get like a direct copy of like a xenomorph in here or a direct copy of like um, the predators. Why am I blanking on the Ouchins? That's what they're called. Like, we're not pulling direct copies or trying to replicate anything. It's so original, and that was the beauty of it. I just did not like that with Omniverse making Ghost Freak look very gimmicky or certain characters, you know. And that's just my take on it. That's just the beauty of Ben 10. It's why I think his original design is so peak compared to the new one. A lot of people prefer the new one looking like the Grim Reaper. I just don't. Just not it for me. That's like if Zombozo looked a lot more like Pennywise, I'd be like, what are we doing? Like, yeah, it's a clown. You're going to be very limited, but it's an alien clown. You could do so much with it and make him look like Pennywise if that's the route they went.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a design sort of dogma that I really follow here, where I do like to look at things and say less is more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Once you start getting into things that are really, really complex, in designs, you start to break away from the aesthetics that make something really, really strong.
Yeah.
So with the new design of Zascare, it's like that's exactly what ended up happening. I think they added just one too many elements into this, where you lost something that was intimidating and was scary about the original design there, right? Like, the scythe, I think, can be a really good parallel and something, and you could tie that to like the Forever Knights. It is an old timey like melee weapon. It's it has a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
connotation with humanity lore. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it has so much tied to that kind of symbology there. And if you were to add that to originals of Scare, and elevate more of the things that made him originally intimidating and scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you could have had a stronger design than what you ended up with.
No, agreed. And just another design change I just want to bring up. I know it was more of like Alien Force to, the original Ben 10 Alien Force, but Ripjaw's design making him like a catfish in Ultimate Alien Force, or Ultimate Alien and Alien Force, which is not it for me. So I hope they don't tweak the designs too much where it's almost you're changing the species or making it so unnoticeable. If they make it look better and it really fits that horror design they're going for, then completely different. opinion for me. But I just do not want a complete change of anatomy with a character, and it does not make sense. That's just how I think about it, especially with Ripjaws. I look back at that, and I still think that is like such a pointless design. You made him a catfish over what he originally was. That's the one thing with Ben 10. I understand you got to consistently evolve and change aliens. Like, not everyone's going to be the same, especially with different Omnitrix, and he's changing to each one. But I do not want to see characters get completely changed for this. Like,
Yeah,
Wrath should stay a tiger. If Wrath is going to look great and he's going to look like a tiger, that's what I'd want to see. I wouldn't want him being like a lion or something, you know? It's keep the species true to itself.
yeah, and you know what? Like looking at Ultimate Alien, especially with some of those ultimate forms of aliens, I think that was a great way of bringing in new designs to what we already had. Ripjaws and his redesign, I think, was like you said. I think that was a fumble. You take a look at him; like he is an alien, like anglerfish, right? Anglerfish are just terrifying creatures that we have here on Earth. They are scary. So that the light bulb there, it means something,
Yeah.
right? As a viewer, you could take a look at that and be like, okay, this does make sense. And if you are going to introduce a water-based, alien, and you want to, have that sort of catfish design, I think, a better way of doing that is sort of going the wild mutt route, where you have this alien that has no eyes, but it relies on its other senses for, navigating the world. Similarly, catfish, the reason they have those, tendrils off their face is to sense vibrations, right? So if that's your design, if that's your aesthetic, build it off of that rather than slapping that onto something that's, already existing, right? And so if you were to make an ultimate Ripjaws, I think that is a way that you can go with that, where it's, removing the light, this is now not something that relies on prey coming to it. This is a hunter, right?
Yeah.
This is something that can go out and find things.
It's like Spider Monkey and Ultimate Spider Monkey. You go from a monkey to a gorilla. Complete two different species. They're related, but a gorilla and a monkey are not like a chimp and a gorilla together. You know what I mean? It's different. But no, I agree with you. I just think that was one thing I'm really hoping that they're not going to do in this comic. That's a lot of predictions, a lot of hopes, a lot of hope nots.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? With what we have available to us already, I think that they're going to stick more towards the basic designs and bring, and really focus on elevating what makes them strong. Like looking in the alternate cover that we have here, Wildvine, I think, is a great elevation. Like I said earlier, Gray Matter, I think, is, looking really, really good here. We're looking at Accelerate too. The feed on Accelerate is just noticeably different. The color scheme for him is a lot different as well, but it adds to it. It doesn't take away from, what they could have easily done is, made his like feet look a lot more mechanical than they do, right? With the wheels. Like I said, I think it is a genuine elevation of what makes those characters really, really strong. And it does subscribe to that idea where in certain cases, less is definitely more.
100%. I mean, I'm just excited for this to come out, and just I'm pretty sure the first issue's already out. We got to just wait for issue 2, and I'm just excited to see what they build entirely out of this. This could be a bright future, I guess, for Cartoon Network. This could be a great thing just to bring back TV shows in the comic form and just make them mature. But no, I definitely think this could be something that really benefits a lot of these projects for the future. I mean, Ben 10's coming back after 20 years. This could be just a new door opening for everything else. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for this and other properties as well. I'm Brandon.
I'm Dan.
Thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you guys are thinking of this. Do you like the designs? Do you not? What's something you want to see happen in the comment? Thanks.